Undercover boss orders dinner at his own restaurant, freezes when waitress says this place is a trap. Nathan Rhodes drummed his fingers against the steering wheel of his rented sedan, staring at the red brick building that housed one of his most troubled restaurants. The neon sign flickered inconsistently. Harvest Table, a detail that would have been reported and fixed within hours at any of his properly functioning locations. 15 years ago, he'd opened his first Harvest Table with nothing but student loans and a dream of creating restaurants where both customers and employees felt like family. Now, with 38 locations across the country, Nathan had achieved more success than he'd ever imagined. But something had gone terribly wrong at this particular branch. 62% staff turnover in 6 months. He muttered to himself, recalling the disturbing statistics. And a 20% drop in repeat customers. The corporate troubleshooters he'd sent had returned with nothing but surface-level explanations. Equipment issues. Training gaps. Normal growing pains for a location only 18 months old. Yet Nathan's instincts screamed that something deeper was festering. When the third manager in a row had quit without notice, citing personal reasons, he knew he had to see for himself. He adjusted the wire-rimmed glasses he never actually needed and ran a hand over his newly grown beard. His transformation from recognizable CEO to anonymous middle-aged traveler had taken weeks of preparation. New clothes from discount stores, a rental car with Midwest plates, and a carefully crafted backstory as a traveling insurance adjuster. Even his own mother wouldn't recognize him now. "Time to find out what's really happening," he said, stepping out of the car. The restaurant's exterior maintained the warm, inviting facade that was the Harvest Table trademark: rustic wooden signage, tasteful landscaping, and soft yellow lighting visible through large windows. But Nathan immediately noticed the subtle signs of neglect: weeds pushing through the decorative rock beds, smudges on the front doors, and burnout bulbs in the entry fixtures. Inside, the hostess, a young woman with tired eyes despite her bright smile, greeted him with rehearsed enthusiasm. "Welcome to Harvest Table. Just one tonight?" "Yes, just me," Nathan replied in the slightly higher pitch he'd practiced, different from his usual authoritative tone. "Somewhere quiet if possible. It's been a long day on the road." "Of course, sir. Right this way." As she led him through the dining room, he catalogued every detail through new eyes. The restaurant was busy but not packed, unusual for a Thursday evening at any Harvest Table. The music was slightly too loud. Several tables had empty glasses that hadn't been cleared. The signature bread baskets that were supposed to arrive immediately were conspicuously absent from at least 3 occupied tables. The hostess seated him at a corner booth with a good view of the main floor. "Your server Elena will be with you shortly," she said before hurrying away. Nathan watched the staff with the critical eye of someone who had built a restaurant empire from scratch. Their movements lacked the choreographed efficiency he demanded in his training programs. Instead, they moved with the cautious wariness of people navigating a minefield. Quick glances over shoulders, hushed conversations that stopped when someone approached, forced smiles that never reached their eyes. Several minutes passed before a woman in her early 30s approached his table. Her Harvest Table uniform was impeccable, but the dark circles under her eyes told a different story. "Hi there, welcome to Harvest Table. I'm Elena, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." Her smile was practiced but genuine. "Can I start you with something to drink?" "Just water and maybe your house red wine, please," Nathan replied, studying her. Elena was exactly the type of employee he typically valued most, experienced enough to handle any situation, genuinely caring despite obvious exhaustion. The kind of person who should have been on a management track long ago. "Coming right up," she said, placing a menu in front of him. "Our special tonight is herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables, but between you and me," her voice lowered slightly, "the chicken piccata is always a safer bet." When she returned with his wine, Nathan took a deliberate sip and nodded appreciatively. "This is nice. I wasn't sure what to expect. It's my first time at a Harvest Table." "Really?" Elena seemed genuinely surprised. "They're all over these days. The founder had a great vision when he started out." Something flickered across her face, disappointment, perhaps regret. You sound like you've been with the company a while. Nathan probed gently. 5 years this August. She confirmed, a flash of pride momentarily lighting her features before fading. Started at the downtown location before transferring here when it opened. Sounds like you enjoy it. Her smile faltered slightly. Elena glanced around as if checking who might be listening, then leaned in slightly. It used to be different. The original locations, they were really something special. Great place to work, great place to eat. And now? Nathan asked, his heart already sinking. Elena straightened up, professional mask sliding back into place. Ready to order, or do you need a few more minutes? I'll take your recommendation. The chicken piccata sounds perfect. Good choice. She scribbled on her notepad. I'll get that started for you. Throughout the meal, Nathan carefully built rapport with Elena, asking casual questions about the area and sharing fictional details about his made-up life as a traveling insurance adjuster. With each visit to his table, she relaxed incrementally, her genuine personality emerging in brief glimpses, a dry sense of humor, a passionate knowledge of food, a nurturing instinct toward the younger servers she occasionally guided with a subtle word or gesture. As she delivered his dessert, a slice of the chocolate bourbon cake that had been on the original Harvest Table menu, Nathan decided to test the waters. You know, I'm actually considering applying for a job here, he said casually. I'm getting tired of all the travel in my current position, and this seems like a nice place. Good environment, friendly staff. Something flashed in Elena's eyes, alarm, concern, perhaps even a flicker of protective instinct toward a stranger. She hesitated, glancing around before setting down the dessert fork she'd been about to place. Look, she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the restaurant's ambient noise. You seem like a decent guy. If you're serious about switching careers. She paused, choosing her words carefully. There are better options than here. Oh? Nathan felt his pulse quicken. The ads online made it sound like a great opportunity. Good benefits, advancement potential. Elena's laugh held no humor. That's what they told all of us. She lowered her voice even further. This place is a trap. You think you'll get ahead, but you never do. Nathan felt his blood run cold, his hand freezing midway to his water glass. The naked honesty in her exhausted eyes told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't simple dissatisfaction or a temporary morale issue. The restaurant he'd built with dreams of creating a family-like work environment had become something his employees warned strangers away from. I appreciate your honesty, he managed to say, his mind already racing through implications, possibilities, and necessary next steps. I shouldn't have said anything, Elena replied, suddenly looking nervous. Forget I mentioned it. Enjoy your dessert. As she hurried away, Nathan stared down at the chocolate cake he'd once perfected in his mother's kitchen, the recipe that had become famous across all his restaurants. It now tasted like ashes in his mouth. He'd come looking for problems, expecting perhaps poor management or training issues. Instead, he'd found something far worse. His life's work had become a prison for the very people he'd wanted to elevate and support. Nathan Rhodes, founder and CEO of Harvest Table Restaurants, sat alone in his disguise, horrified by what his company had become when he wasn't looking. And he knew with absolute certainty that his undercover journey had only just begun. Nathan returned to Harvest Table the following evening, requesting Elena's section again. He'd spent the day in his hotel room making notes, reviewing company policies, and trying to understand how his vision had become so distorted. Tonight, he needed details. As he entered, he immediately noticed things he'd overlooked yesterday: a manager with a perpetual scowl watching servers like a hawk, employees flinching when he approached, and the unmistakable tension hanging in the air like smoke. Back so soon? Elena asked, genuine surprise in her voice when she spotted him. The chicken piccata was too good to resist, Nathan replied with a friendly smile. Plus, I'm still apartment hunting, so restaurant meals it is. Elena seemed to relax slightly. Well, welcome back. Same drink as yesterday? As she served him, Nathan paid closer attention to the mechanics of the restaurant. The tip jar at the bar was nearly full, yet the bartender looked miserable. When customers added tips to credit card receipts, the manager quickly collected them. And most disturbingly, he observed several generous cash tips being dropped into a lockbox behind the hostess stand. "So I've been thinking about what you said yesterday," Nathan ventured when Elena brought his entree. "About this place being a trap." Alarm flashed across her face. "I shouldn't have said that. Please forget it. Actually, I'm curious," he pressed gently. "I'm considering applying here, remember? I'd appreciate knowing what I might be getting into." Elena hesitated, then glanced at her watch. "My break is in 15 minutes. If you're really interested, I could use some fresh air." Exactly 17 minutes later, Nathan found Elena sitting on a bench behind the restaurant, a half-eaten sandwich in her hands. "I only have 10 minutes, she said as he approached. "And I'm risking my job talking to you." "I appreciate it," Nathan said, sitting beside her. "So what's really happening here?" Elena sighed deeply. "It's a perfectly designed system to extract as much work for as little compensation as possible." She took a quick bite of her sandwich. "They cap everyone at 29 hours weekly, just below the threshold for benefits. But they expect 35 hours of work compressed into those 29 paid hours." "And the tips?" Nathan asked, remembering the lockbox. "That's the most brilliant part of the scam," Elena said bitterly. "They've created a pool system where all tips are supposedly divided equally at month's end. Except there's always some excuse why the pool is smaller than expected. Administrative fees, breakage compensation, performance adjustments. Is that legal? Technically, they give us just enough to avoid lawsuits, maybe 20% of what customers actually leave. The rest vanishes." Nathan felt sick. Why do people stay? Why does anyone stay in a bad situation? Elena's eyes reflected years of dashed hopes. "Most of us have responsibilities, children, aging parents, medical bills. And they dangle just enough false hope to keep us tethered. Quarterly bonuses that never materialize because of mysterious performance metrics. Promises of management training that get delayed indefinitely." She checked her watch. "I've got to get back. But here's the real trap. They've created a culture where we blame ourselves. Where we think if we just work harder, smile brighter, move faster, we'll finally get what was promised." Her voice cracked slightly. "And by the time you realize it's never going to happen, you're too exhausted to start over somewhere else." "That's horrifying," Nathan managed, genuine emotion overwhelming his disguise. Elena studied him. "You're different from our usual customers. What did you say you do again?" "I'm a writer," Nathan improvised, abandoning his insurance adjuster cover. "Traveling, gathering stories." Something sparked in Elena's tired eyes. "A writer? With a platform?" She lowered her voice. "Could you maybe tell our story? Not just mine, all of us. People should know what's happening behind the smiles that serve their food." Before Nathan could respond, Elena's phone alarm buzzed. "Break's over. I have to go." She stood, brushing crumbs from her uniform. "Think about it, okay? Someone needs to expose places like this." As she hurried back inside, Nathan remained on the bench, overwhelmed by guilt and rage. His restaurants were supposed to be different, places where staff could build careers, not traps designed to exploit vulnerable workers. He pulled out his phone, canceling his flight home scheduled for tomorrow. Whatever was happening at Harvest Table went far beyond one troubled location. And Nathan Rhodes was now determined to uncover every last detail of the corruption destroying his life's work, no matter how ugly the truth might be. 3 days later, Nathan sat in his hotel room surrounded by notes, printouts, and a map marking all 15 Harvest Table locations in the region. The wall resembled a detective's board, complete with photos, connecting strings, and unanswered questions. He'd spent those days visiting 4 more restaurants under different guises. At each one, he'd uncovered the same poisonous patterns: exhausted staff, mysteriously vanishing tips, managers who ruled through fear, and a pervasive sense of defeat. Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from Marlene Jenkins, his longtime executive assistant and the only person who knew about his undercover operation. Call secure line ASAP. 2 minutes later, Marlene's familiar voice filled the room via speakerphone. I found something. Tell me, Nathan said, pen poised over his notebook. I did what you asked, reviewed all the financial reports from the regional office without going through normal channels. You were right. There's a shadow system. Nathan's pen pressed into the paper. Explain. The regional manager for all 15 locations, Rick Sanders, has been running what looks like 2 sets of books. The official numbers that corporate sees, and the actual money flow. Marlene's voice dropped lower. And he didn't do it alone. He's working with Payflex, the outsourced payroll company handling that region. Payflex? Nathan frowned. They weren't our approved vendor. They were added during the expansion last year. Their proposal went through Rick's office and was fast-tracked for approval. The documentation looked perfect, competitive rates, excellent references. But I've been digging. Payflex was created just 3 weeks before bidding for our contract. Their references? All shell companies. Nathan's blood ran cold. How much money are we talking about? Based on my calculations of just tips and hourly wage manipulation? At least $6 million over the past 18 months. And that's conservative. $6 million stolen from my employees, Nathan said, his voice dangerously quiet. Where's it going? Offshore accounts mostly. I'm still tracing it, but Rick's lifestyle has certainly improved. New vacation home in Aspen. Boat. His wife suddenly wearing jewelry that costs more than her annual salary used to be. Nathan stood, pacing the small room. The complaint system, why didn't we catch this sooner? That's the other thing, Marlene said grimly. Remember how we set up that direct employee feedback line? All complaints are supposed to go straight to HR at corporate? Let me guess. They never arrived. Worse. They were received, logged, and marked as resolved without ever being investigated. Someone at corporate is helping Rick. Nathan stopped pacing. Who? I don't know yet. I need more time. How far does this go, Marlene? Is it just this region? Her silence answered before her words did. I'm finding similar patterns in 2 other regions. Different payroll companies, but identical methods. Nathan collapsed back into his chair. It's not just one bad regional manager. It's a network. I've arranged a meeting with Sophia Chen, Marlene said. Our internal auditor? Can we trust her? She's the one who first flagged the payroll discrepancies last year, but her reports were buried. Whoever's involved at corporate, it isn't her. Nathan rubbed his temples. Set up a secure line. I need to speak with her immediately. After the call, Nathan returned to Harvest's table for dinner again. Elena's face brightened slightly when she saw him. The writer returns, she said, with a genuine smile. Still gathering stories? More than I expected, Nathan replied honestly. Elena, if you had proof that something illegal was happening here, would you be willing to speak up? Her smile vanished. That's dangerous talk. What if you weren't alone? What if others stood with you? Elena glanced around the restaurant, her gaze lingering on a young server struggling with a heavy tray, a dishwasher with bandaged hands, and an elderly hostess who should have retired years ago. For them? Maybe, she whispered. But proof is the problem. Everything's designed so nothing can be traced. What if someone helped you gather that proof? Nathan pressed. Elena studied him with new suspicion. Who are you really? Before Nathan could answer, a commotion erupted near the kitchen. Rick Sanders, the regional manager Nathan had never personally met but now recognized from photos, had arrived for a surprise inspection. The entire atmosphere of the restaurant instantly transformed, with staff moving at frantic speed, fear evident in every hurried step. Rick's eyes swept the dining room like a predator scanning for weakness. When his gaze landed on Nathan and Elena's extended conversation, his expression darkened. That's him, Elena whispered, turning away. The man who runs the trap. Nathan watched as Rick beckoned the floor manager over, whispering instructions while pointing subtly in their direction. The manager nodded, heading straight toward them. I have to go, Elena said urgently. And you probably shouldn't come back. It's not safe. As she hurried away, Nathan sat quietly, finally face to face with the architect of his employees' misery. What had begun as an investigation into one troubled location had revealed something far more sinister, a coordinated network of exploitation that had infected his entire company like a cancer. And Nathan realized with grim determination that removing this cancer would require more than just firing one corrupt manager. He would need to tear down and rebuild the very system that had allowed this corruption to flourish in his name. Mr. Miller, is it? The floor manager loomed over Nathan's table, referring to the fake name he'd been using. I understand you've been asking our staff some unusual questions. Nathan maintained his disguise perfectly. Just making conversation. Your waitress, Elena, right, has been providing excellent service. Yes, well, we pride ourselves on service here. The manager's smile never reached his eyes. But we also value our employees' focus. Extensive personal conversations can be distracting. The threat was thinly veiled. Nathan nodded amiably. Of course. I wouldn't want to interfere with anyone's work. Wonderful. The manager glanced toward Rick Sanders, who was watching their interaction intently. Enjoy your meal, sir. Nathan finished his dinner in deliberate, unhurried bites, left an excessive cash tip he knew Elena would never receive, and exited without looking back. But instead of leaving, he circled to his rental car in the far corner of the parking lot and waited. 2 hours later, as the restaurant closed, he watched staff filter out. Elena was among the last, shoulders slumped with exhaustion. Nathan flashed his headlights once as she passed. She hesitated, then approached cautiously. You shouldn't be here, she said through his cracked window. I know. Get in. 5 minutes. Once inside, Elena turned to him. They questioned me for half an hour about you. What are you really doing? Gathering evidence, Nathan said simply, abandoning pretense. Elena, I believe you and your co-workers are victims of systematic wage theft and fraud. I want to help, but I need insiders. You're with the labor board? Hope flickered across her face. No. But I have resources and influence. He handed her a burner phone. I need documentation. Photos of tip records versus payouts. Screenshots of schedules showing how hours are manipulated. Copies of promised bonuses versus actual compensation. Elena stared at the phone. They'll fire anyone caught doing this. Be careful. Be methodical. And you won't be alone. Nathan handed her a sealed envelope. Inside is a list of trusted employees from the internal auditor, people at other locations already helping us. Contact them using only this phone. Why me? Because you cared enough to warn a stranger away from the trap. Nathan met her eyes. And because you have the courage many lack. Over the next 2 weeks, Nathan orchestrated a silent resistance movement. While maintaining his cover with occasional visits to various harvest table locations, he worked with Marlene and Sophia Chin to meticulously document the fraud. The burner phones became a network of whispered truth. Elena proved remarkably effective, recruiting 5 other employees at her location who began collecting evidence. Similar cells formed at 12 other restaurants. Documentation poured in. Manipulated timecards, diverted tip records, falsified bonus criteria that could never be met. Meanwhile, Nathan used his CEO authority anonymously, delaying Rick's requests for fund transfers, implementing surprise corporate compliance reviews, and subtly restricting the regional manager's access to financial systems. He's getting nervous, Sophia reported during their nightly conference call. Rick sent 3 urgent emails today about payment system glitches. He's trying to access funds that aren't flowing as expected. Good, Nathan replied. Keep the pressure on, but make every obstruction look like technical problems or routine corporate oversight. The documentation from employees is damning, Marlene added. We've confirmed fraud totaling nearly 8 million now, and identified 2 accomplices at corporate headquarters. What about Elena? Nathan asked. Is she safe? So far. But Rick's definitely suspicious. He's installed cameras in employee break areas and started random bag searches. The next evening, Nathan returned to the original harvest table location and requested Elena's section. She looked thinner, more strained, but there was a new fire in her eyes when she recognized him. Dangerous for you to be here, she whispered while serving his appetizer. I had to check on you. Rick's getting desperate. Elena nodded almost imperceptibly. He's called 3 staff meetings this week about loyalty and outside troublemakers. Yesterday, he fired Jessie from the bar for having her phone out during shift. We're almost ready to move, Nathan assured her. Just a few more days. There are rumors corporate visitors are coming next Tuesday, Elena whispered. Rick's panicking, making us deep clean everything and memorize false talking points about how happy we are. Nathan nodded slightly. Tuesday it is, then. As he paid his bill, he left a note hidden inside the checkbook. Be ready Tuesday. The trap is about to spring on them. That night, in his hotel room, Nathan finally shed his disguise. He trimmed his beard to his familiar neat corporate style, exchanged the wire-rimmed glasses for his usual contacts, and laid out his best suit. For the first time in nearly a month, he looked like Nathan Rhodes, CEO of Harvest Table Restaurants, again. Time to reclaim my company, he said to his reflection, and free my people. His phone buzzed with an urgent message from Sophia. Warning, Rick asking questions about Elena. Her computer access revoked. Possible termination tomorrow. Nathan's plan had just lost the luxury of time. The final confrontation would have to come sooner than expected, before Rick could silence the one person who had unwittingly sparked this entire investigation with 7 simple words. This place is a trap. Elena arrived for her shift the next morning with a knot of dread in her stomach. The hostess gave her a warning look as she entered. Rick's here early. Looking for you. Thanks, Elena whispered, her hand instinctively touching the burner phone hidden in her pocket. She'd backed up all the evidence to the secure cloud storage as instructed, but still carried the device out of fear someone might search her apartment. She barely made it to the locker room when the floor manager appeared. Rick wants you in the office. Now. Rick Sanders sat behind the manager's desk, a folder open before him. His expensive watch caught the fluorescent light as he gestured to the chair across from him. Elena. 5 years with the company. His tone was conversational, but his eyes were cold. Started downtown, requested transfer here. Always reliable. Until recently. I'm not sure what you mean, sir. Rick slid a printout across the desk. Your system logins. Accessing payroll records at odd hours. Pulling historical tip data. He smiled thinly. We monitor everything, Elena. Her mouth went dry. I was just trying to understand the bonus metrics better. And taking photos of the schedule? Collecting coworkers' pay stubs. Rick's smile vanished. We know someone's been feeding information to outside parties. Corporate is very concerned about potential corporate espionage. I don't know anything about. Your termination paperwork is already processed. Rick cut her off. Security will escort you out. And I should warn you, your confidentiality agreement includes rather severe penalties for sharing company information. A knock at the office door interrupted them. The hostess poked her head in, looking flustered. Sir, I'm sorry, but there's a situation. Corporate visitors just arrived. They're insisting on an all-staff meeting immediately. Rick's face paled slightly. That's scheduled for next week. They're saying it's urgent. Everyone's already gathering in the main dining room. Rick stood abruptly. We'll finish this later, he told Elena. Stay here. As soon as he left, Elena pulled out the burner phone. One new message. Join the meeting. Sit front row. Trust me. The main dining room had been hastily rearranged. Tables pushed aside, chairs arranged in rows. Staff gathered nervously, whispering among themselves. At the front stood 3 people in expensive suits, 2 women and a man, their backs to the room as they spoke quietly. Elena slipped into the front row, heart pounding. Rick stood nearby, attempting to look composed as he approached the corporate team. "Rick Sanders," he said smoothly, extending his hand to the man whose back was still turned. "We weren't expecting you until next week, but of course we're delighted." The man turned, and Rick's words died in his throat. Nathan Rhodes, founder and CEO of Harvest Table Restaurants, smiled coldly at his regional manager's shock. "Surprise inspection," Nathan said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Or perhaps I should call it what it really is, a reckoning." A murmur ran through the assembled staff. Elena froze in her seat, staring at the familiar face now stripped of its disguise. "Mr. Miller?" she whispered. Nathan's eyes found hers briefly before returning to Rick. "For those who don't know me, I'm Nathan Rhodes. I founded this company 15 years ago with one simple mission: to create restaurants where both customers and employees were treated like family." He stepped forward, commanding the room. 3 weeks ago, I heard something that disturbed me deeply. A trusted employee told a guest that this restaurant, my restaurant, was a trap. So I decided to see for myself. Nathan gestured to Marlene and Sophia, who opened laptops connected to the restaurant's display screens. What I discovered was theft on a massive scale. Not of silverware or food or money from the register, but something far more valuable. The theft of dignity. Of fair compensation. Of respect. The screens filled with spreadsheets, photographs, and charts detailing the fraud. Staff gasped as they recognized their own schedules, tip records, and the corresponding falsified payouts. $8.3 million, Nathan announced. That's how much has been stolen from the employees of this region over the past 18 months through manipulated hours, diverted tips, and phantom bonuses. Rick lunged toward the door, but 2 security officers, real ones, not Rick's hired intimidators, blocked his path. "Police are already processing warrants for financial crimes," Nathan continued. "And I've personally authorized full back payment of every dollar stolen, with interest, to every affected employee." The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Elena sat stunned, tears streaming down her face. Nathan raised his hands for quiet. "This ends today. Not just the theft, but the culture of fear that allowed it to happen." He walked to Elena's chair and extended his hand. "This woman, and dozens like her across our locations, risked their livelihoods to expose the truth. While I failed to protect you as your founder, they showed the courage I should have demonstrated long ago." Elena hesitantly took his hand and stood beside him. "Starting today," Nathan declared, "Elena will lead a new employee advocacy division with direct report to me. No complaint will ever be buried again. No voice silenced. The trap is broken." As police officers entered and led Rick away in handcuffs, Nathan turned to Elena. "I'm sorry I deceived you. But your honesty, your courage when you thought I was just a stranger, you saved this company's soul." Elena, still processing the revelation, could only ask one question. "Why did you choose to listen?" "Because," Nathan replied, his voice carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent room. "Real leaders never forget that without their people, they have nothing." 6 months later, Elena stood in the center of the completely renovated Harvest Table restaurant, directing staff as they prepared for the grand reopening. The physical changes were impressive: warmer lighting, more comfortable seating for both customers and resting employees, an upgraded kitchen with state-of-the-art equipment. But the real transformation lay in what couldn't be seen. "New pay stubs are in," called Jessie, the bartender who'd been rehired immediately after Rick's removal. She waved a stack of envelopes. "Direct deposit hit too, with the transparency report." Staff gathered eagerly, a stark contrast to the fearful huddles of before. Each envelope contained not just a paycheck, but a detailed breakdown of hours worked, tips received, and a QR code linking to the restaurant's new public accountability dashboard. "Still can't believe we get health insurance at 20 hours now," said Miguel from the kitchen, scanning his report. "My daughter's asthma medication alone." Elena smiled, remembering the company-wide policy overhaul Nathan had implemented. Minimum hours for benefits reduced. Tip transparency mandated. Monthly open forums where any employee could address management directly. And most revolutionary, a profit-sharing program that gave every employee a stake in their restaurant's success. Her new title, Regional Director of Employee Advocacy, came with responsibilities that would have terrified her a year ago. But Elena had discovered a talent for systems building and a passion for justice that made the work deeply fulfilling. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Still on for 7?" Nathan had made it a point to visit each location regularly, not as the intimidating CEO dropping in for inspection, but as a working partner. He'd spend shifts washing dishes, bussing tables, or cooking on the line, reconnecting with the foundation of the business he'd built. The investigation had eventually uncovered fraud at 23 of the 38 Harvest Table locations. 11 managers and 3 corporate executives had faced criminal charges. The financial cost had been staggering, over $20 million in stolen wages repaid, plus additional compensation for pain and suffering. "Elena!" called a voice from the entrance. Sophia Chin, the internal auditor who'd become one of Elena's closest allies, hurried in with her tablet. "The national numbers just came in. You're going to want to see this." Elena scanned the report and caught her breath. For the first time since the scandal broke, overall company revenue had not only stabilized but grown by 12%. Employee turnover had plummeted from 62% to just 8% quarterly. And customer satisfaction scores had reached all-time highs. "It's working," Elena whispered. "Proving what some of us always knew," Sophia replied. "Treating people well isn't just morally right, it's good business." That evening, the restaurant reopened with a private event for employees and their families. Children raced between tables decorated with fresh flowers. Parents who had once been too exhausted to attend school functions now laughed together, sharing stories of renewed lives. Nathan arrived without fanfare, casually dressed and carrying his young daughter on his shoulders. He greeted staff by name, remembering details about their lives that showed genuine connection rather than corporate performance. As dinner wound down, he clinked his glass for attention. "I won't make a long speech," he promised. "But I want to share something important. 6 months ago, this company lost its way. We forgot that restaurants aren't buildings or brands or balance sheets, they're people." He gestured around the room. "The true measure of our success isn't profit, though that's coming back stronger than ever. It's this: families together, dignity restored, trust rebuilt." Nathan raised his glass. "To all of you who had the courage to stay and fight for something better. And especially to Elena, who taught a CEO what leadership really means." Later, as guests departed, Nathan found Elena sitting alone in the same booth where he'd first heard those fateful words. He slid into the seat across from her. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked. Elena looked around the empty restaurant, no longer a place of dread but of possibility. "I was just remembering how trapped I felt. How hopeless." She met his eyes. "And wondering how many other places like this still exist. How many people are still caught in similar traps." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. "That's why the Harvest Table Foundation launches next month. Using our story to advocate for industry-wide reforms. And guess who's leading it?" Elena's eyes widened. "Me? If you want it. Your choice, absolutely no pressure. But you have a gift, Elena. You see systems others miss and have the courage to challenge them." Elena gazed around once more at the restaurant, now a symbol of redemption rather than exploitation. Employee artwork hung on the walls. The mission statement, rewritten collaboratively, emphasized community and mutual respect. The tip jar at the bar had been replaced with a transparent digital system showing real-time distribution. "From trap to launching pad," she said softly. "Yes. I'll do it." From his quiet corner booth, Nathan Rhodes watched his restaurant hum with authentic joy and purpose, the vision he'd always intended finally realized. The journey had been painful, the cost steep. But as he observed Elena already sketching ideas for the foundation, he knew some traps, once broken, could become the very foundations for freedom.